Good afternoon. I'm Kent Scheffel. I'm with Lewis and Clark Community College in Illinois, and we're going to be talking about dual enrollment in Florida during this session. I'm hoping this session goes better than lunch at our table. I'm from that Illinois portion of, that portion of Illinois that's very close to St. Louis, and we're very excited about the fact that the Cardinals are in the World Series. I got news for you back in the back. The Tiger and Padre fans are not excited about this. The ones that are on the panel, so be careful. Yeah, let's move on. On the panel today is Matthew Bouck. Matthew is the administrator of the Office of Articulation at the Florida Department of Education, and he is responsible for Florida's long-standing and comprehensive guaranteed college course transfer system, which includes dual enrollment. Also on the panel is Dr. Nikolai Vitti. Dr. Vitti is Superintendent of Duval County Public Schools. Among his goals are increasing the graduation rate, developing instructional leaders, and improving teacher quality, which are all issues that we all face in our concurrent enrollment programs. He's also served as superintendent of Duval, or prior to serving as superintendent of Duval County, Dr. Vitti was the chief academic officer for Miami-Dade County Public Schools. And our third panelist is Dr. Judith Bilsky. She's the vice president and provost of Florida State College at Jacksonville. She serves as the chief academic officer for the State College Division. And as part of her work, she has revised the Duval County Public Schools dual enrollment agreement. She also served at the Florida Department of Education and wrote the statement of standards for dual enrollment that were later codified into statute. So with that said, Matt, if you'd like to begin.
Well, coming from the state level, I can't go anywhere without a PowerPoint. So I have one that I hope is going to be loaded momentarily, and I'll go very quickly. I want to give the maximum amount of time to where dual enrollment actually happens at the local level. But I do want to just go through a little bit of, from a statewide view, some of the statewide policies that we have here in Florida governing our dual enrollment program. And there is my email address down there, and if this presentation will be made available to you, and I'm always happy to get even more communication about dual enrollment than I already do from here in Florida. A little bit of background about the program in Florida. It's a number of acceleration mechanisms that we have here in Florida that are promoted. In fact, there is a statute that we have that school districts must offer one of a number of acceleration mechanism options: advanced placement, international baccalaureate, advanced international certificate of education, dual enrollment, to make sure that students have options for acceleration. One of the changes this year was not only that students shall be working toward not only a diploma and also a degree, but also that students in our career dual enrollment education program be also working for an industry certification. So those students who are working toward an associate in science or associate in applied science degree or a non-college credit certificate, that all that dual enrollment must also be leading toward an industry certification. And one of course, the more attractive parts of this program is that the tuition, registration, those fees, lab fees, are free to the student, and that is regardless of where they're coming from. Tuition is free for everyone. And also for those students coming from a public institution, a public secondary school, their instructional materials are made available to them free of charge. Of course, that carries with it a number of issues of which I'm going to talk about near the end of my presentation. Students, home education, private school students, they have to provide their own instructional materials. The eligibility criteria you can see there for students to get into dual enrollment. Obviously, these are the state is very interested in ensuring that the quality of dual enrollment courses is there to make sure that students are ready for those college courses because, of course, it becomes a college transcript and we'll follow them. Another policy you'll see that we've had several years ago, we've had issues with different sets of weighting, which allowed or meant that parents weren't exactly sure, students and parents not sure exactly how the courses would be weighted, how those would be applied toward their high school GPAs. And so one of the state policies we have is that dual enrollment be weighted the same in GPA calculations as any other acceleration mechanism. And again, I'm going to go through this very quickly, but I would be happy to, if something kind of strikes you, be happy to get a communication from you later, and I can make some more information available to you. One of the state level policies we have, as well as a lot of other policies, is to ensure that students receive credit either in high school or college. We have a number of policies that govern the transfer, the award and transfer of credit. Dual enrollment courses are all guaranteed that they're going to get at least half an elective credit in high school. We also have what we call our dual enrollment course high school subject area equivalency list, where at the state level we have reviewed several hundred dual enrollment courses in the various subject areas, high school graduation subject areas. And we have a state level list that guarantees that a student who completes the dual enrollment course will get this certain high school subject area credit. So if a student takes college algebra, it's guaranteed that they're going to get a high school math credit. In addition, there are a number of courses in mathematics, in natural sciences, in English, that may generate one full high school credit for one semester of work for that post-secondary course. And the dual enrollment courses also meet requirements for our Bright Future Scholarship Program. So students who complete dual enrollment can also apply those toward their eligibility for our Bright Futures Scholarship. While we do have state-level governance of the dual enrollment program, it's really run at the local level. So the agreement between the college and the school district is really what drives the program. The college system and district school superintendents are required to enter into a dual enrollment articulation agreement, and the statute mandates that they have as a part of the agreement a number of things that will ensure that students have access to dual enrollment, to make sure that the courses and faculty are at the level at the post-secondary level, and then also, of course, negotiations about funding. And I'll hopefully spend about 10 seconds on that at the end of this presentation. These agreements are submitted to the department for review, but not necessarily for approval, but simply to make sure that they meet the statute. There are a number of other agreements that can be entered into. The post-secondary institutions must enter into an agreement with the school district and with home education families. The Florida College or State University enters into agreement with a particular home education family, and then, of course, enters into an agreement with the school district. Other articulation agreements are at the discretion of either party. State universities with a school district, any of our post-secondary institutions with a private secondary school, or a school district with an eligible private post-secondary institution. Those are all optional dual enrollment articulation agreements. We find that most do, as far as you see the arrows that go, the arrows pretty much head in every direction. There are a number of agreements that have been entered into for private high schools. We have a number, we have about, I think, 1,600 students who've taken dual enrollment courses at a private post-secondary institution. The students generally are coming from public schools. These are students who are going into the Florida college system, mostly coming from public schools, and you'll see that there are a number coming from private schools and homeschool. I think the homeschool is probably the one that is outpacing as far as the growth in dual enrollment, but you'll see that the overwhelming number are still coming from public schools. Now, one of the major issues we've had in Florida has been the growth in dual enrollment. You'll see this chart here from several years ago, 2006, 2007, between all dual enrollment students, students who've taken dual enrollment wherever, home education students going into a Florida college, students taking dual enrollment at a private post-secondary, or the normal students from a public school, public high school going to a Florida college system. There were 37,000 students about 7 years ago. We've got about 65,000 now here in 2012, 2013. There's the Florida college system makes up about 80% of that 65,000, with 10 state universities making up about 10% of that total. It's the reason for the rise in dual enrollment is manyfold. Obviously, with the economy, more and more families are seeing the value in getting a free public education or free progress toward a degree. In fact, we do have a growing number of students who are getting their AA degree when they get their high school diploma. One of the other reasons, if you'll notice, around 2009, 2010, the curve started to get a little bit steeper. One of the at least possible reasons for that, our school grading formula, which is incredibly complex and is boiled down to this. Our school grading formula went from an assessment only, in that it used to use only our Florida Comprehensive Assessment Test to calculate a school grade. In the 9-10 school year, it also used a number of other factors, of which participation and performance in an acceleration mechanism was one. So students who participate and perform well in one of the number of acceleration mechanisms, including dual enrollment, that would positively impact the district school grade. And so participation in those programs, especially dual enrollment, where the percentage of students who get a C in dual enrollment is, in Florida, is right around 91%, I think, of the students who will get a C in the dual enrollment course. Whereas overall in Florida, I think we're at about a 46, 48% pass rate for students to generate college credit through AP. The most popular dual enrollment courses we have here in the state of Florida, you'll see this list, and it really runs kind of the list of your communication, social science, mathematics courses. We found that 81% of the courses that are taken through dual enrollment are academic courses, with the career college credit courses making up about 17%, and then the post-secondary adult vocational for a certificate makes up about 2% of that enrollment. The one thing to note, though, that while these are the most popular courses, there's only a very broad statutory limit on dual enrollment courses. Physical education skills courses, developmental education courses are the only ones that are specifically prohibited from being offered through dual enrollment. In fact, last year there were 1,700 different courses that were taken through dual enrollment. So the sky's the limit as far as whatever the post-secondary institution will allow the student to take through dual enrollment. The dual enrollment courses, dual enrollment courses do fall under our statewide course numbering system. We have in Florida a course number system that applies to all state universities, Florida college system institutions, technical centers, and will guarantee the transfer of credit for any student who completes an equivalent course. So dual enrollment courses, as college courses, will also transfer. So a student who takes a dual enrollment course goes on to the Florida college system or a state university. Those courses will be transcripted as college courses and must be accepted in transfer as though the student took it at the receiving institution. We find that, and I'm sure you've seen some of these data, I'm going to go through this very quickly. We find dual enrollment students perform better than non-dual enrollment students in terms of subsequent course performance. You'll see in college algebra or freshman composition, they do well after transferring to a state university. They're more likely to graduate from high school, more likely to go on to a 4-year, more likely to persist. Not only national, but also statewide data bear this out. And also, 12th graders who participated in dual enrollment enroll in post-secondary education here in Florida at a much greater rate than non-dual enrollment students. Includes the Florida college system, are independent colleges and universities of Florida, state universities. We find that 40% of our dual enrollment 12th graders enrolled in a Florida state university system, as compared to 10% of those who were not dual enrollment students. Finally, a few issues that we've had here in Florida. One, of course, instructional materials. You'll recall that instructional materials are made available to the student free of charge. The district typically will provide those instructional materials for the student. I'm sure Dr. Vitti could tell you a whole lot more than I about the burden that places on the school district in providing those instructional materials. We find that for some larger districts, that they may have to expend several $100,000 more for the instructional materials than they have been allocated for. So that's been an ongoing issue that we've had as far as the funding. And also what is included in instructional materials, whether consumable materials are included as instructional materials, or whether we're finding the access fees, that as more and more publishers are having electronic access fees for those electronic texts, but that can only be used for one semester, so therefore the district does not own it. We're having those issues in terms of, does the district still have to provide that kind of instructional material. Charter schools. Florida has had a huge growth in charter schools, and typically they are not included in the district dual enrollment agreement, that they will have to negotiate their own agreements with the college, but it's certainly not a statewide standard. And so whether the charter school can deny access to dual enrollment or negotiate those agreements is something at the local level. The online private high schools, and those what we sometimes call the umbrella schools. Here in Florida, they're considered to be a private school student, a student who is in one of those umbrella schools, but even if they have all their instruction at home, it's still considered to be a private school student. And so the rules are different. The college does not have to enter into an agreement with a private school, but does have to allow the homeschool student to take dual enrollment. So we get a number of issues of confusion of how is a student classified between home education and a private school. Limits. This is something that I get several calls a day from parents about who bemoan any kind of limit on dual enrollment. A college might impose an 8 to 12 credit limit on the number of credits a student may take per semester. They're convinced that their son can do 18 credits a semester because they need to get their AA degree this year or something like that. But that's left to the individual college and individual district in their articulation agreement. There's no statewide standard that says you have to have minimum or maximum amount of credits. So any time that's left to the local level often calls me. And as we go on, the entrance test, of course, some districts might or some colleges might make a student pass all the sections of an entrance exam. Some may let them go on if they've passed the section that applies to the course that they want. And then how to deal with students who are ineligible for dual enrollment, whether they can just pay for the courses or whether waivers are granted. The statute mandates that GPA waivers be granted on an individual student basis and not just whole broad swaths of students. Finally, the big issue this year. Prior to this year, dual enrollment funding was, the school district was funded for dual enrollment based on a comparable FTE, in that they would get the funding as if the student were sitting in a class at the high school. The college, however, was losing the tuition, and so they did not get tuition. They got a state allocation. And so there was seemingly kind of an inequity there in terms of dual enrollment funding. There have been some existing arrangements. Some districts have already been paying the college for dual enrollment instruction. However, this past legislative session, the legislature decided to step in and codify that. And depending on where the instruction was happening, for dual enrollment instruction happening on the college campus, the school district had to pay the standard tuition rate, which was $71.98 per credit hour. So and then of course lesser amounts if the class was happening on the high school campus or whether it was taught by high school faculty. These had to be negotiated in their articulation agreements. We found that this has been an area of concern for a lot of areas, partly because this law was passed effective July 1 and the articulation agreements were due August 1. And July, I don't believe, is a really big time for school boards to meet or boards of trustees. So it's been a challenge for the school districts and the colleges to get these agreements completed, and also to, as they've budgeted for one thing and then have to do another. So this is one thing that is an area of major concern in Florida as we're continuing to look. It's something the legislature is going to take up again, of course, in this next legislative session. But it is one of the areas of greatest concern of the state right now. And with that, let me turn it over.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Nikolai Vitti. I'm the proud superintendent of Duval County Public Schools. I'm going to be brief because I think you're most interested in hearing the conversation on the panel. A lot of the information that you heard about the Department of Education in Florida's approach to dual enrollment, I'm proud to say that I was at the Department of Education when we did change the way that high schools were graded. And just to provide some background knowledge, because I think it's important for you who are advocates for dual enrollment to go back to your states and think about this from a policy level, which is it's always about creating the right incentives for districts and schools to do the right things for kids. And one thing that we were thinking about at the Department of Education while I was there about 5 years ago was how do we incentivize high schools to turn into more of what they should be doing, which is post-secondary education, moving kids to be post-secondary ready. And what was happening in Florida was the way in which our accountability measured high schools was based on a basic skills reading and math test that was taken in 9th and 10th grade, and then a science test, which was general knowledge in 11th grade, and then a writing test in 10th grade, but it was all basic skills. There was very little linked to post-secondary readiness or post-secondary preparation. So the slide that you saw on there, I think, was groundbreaking to incentivize principals and districts to think differently about what kids should be doing in high school. Not thinking about basic skills, but making them truly college ready or industry ready. So the changes in statute and policy changed the way in which we scheduled kids, and then the agreements that we had with our local universities. Mainly in the context of this conversation was acceleration. Acceleration defined by dual enrollment, advanced placement, industry certification, international baccalaureate, or ACE, linked to the Cambridge program. So that was one component of having more kids take those classes, and then not only having them take them, but also in being successful in taking them. We also added college readiness actual numbers, and so that was, are you college ready as defined by the ACT, the SAT, or at that time the college placement test, now called the PERT, to determine if you had to take a remediation class when you enrolled in college in 9th grade, in your freshman year. So all of that changed the way high schools really scheduled, operated, and recruited faculty. And I do think it has been transformative in Florida because we now actually are doing what we should have been doing, which is not only thinking about kids graduating from high school, but are they ready to be successful in college or the world of work. So very specifically, for my work, coming from Miami-Dade as the Chief Academic Officer, we transformed our high schools by creating 3 pathways in the high school experience for our students, which I'm beginning to build here in Duval County Public Schools, which is focusing on the career academies, if you will, and ensuring that they go to 3 pathways. One pathway is to advanced placement, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Another pathway is dual enrollment, or industry, or dual enrollment, international baccalaureate, or ACE, and then the other route is industry certification. So you'll see those 3 pathways will lead to kids being either college ready or workforce ready. And linked to that is the ongoing conversation, obviously linked to Common Core with post-secondary readiness, is how do you best motivate children and prepare children for post-secondary education? I would argue without hesitation that the best way to prepare children for college is dual enrollment and not advanced placement. And that's a strong statement, and I stand by that. I have seen it. I've seen it anecdotally with kids, and I think the data speaks to that, some of the slide that you just saw. I'll give you some numbers linked to Duval County Public Schools. We have about roughly 6,500 kids that take dual enrollment class. The majority of them at least complete that class with a C or better. We have roughly 25,000 students that take advanced placement courses. Yet, of those students that take advanced placement courses, only about 30% receive the college credit to be applied when they go to college. What I have seen, and I would even argue in the lowest performing high schools that I directly led in Miami, is that if we're going to talk about having kids college ready, dual enrollment is a clear way to demonstrate to a child that they're able to do college level work, that they're college material. So when we're talking about building a college going culture, no better way to show a child who's on the bubble about thinking about whether they should go to college, whether they can afford college or that they would like college, is to actually have them take a college course. It's actually common sense. And instead, I would believe, strong statement in that a lot of the lobbying efforts linked to advanced placement and a lot of the, I would say, bells and whistles and somewhat of the elitism linked to advanced placement have been used as a one-size-fits-all silver bullet approach to adding rigor and relevancy to the high school curriculum. I think it actually does the counter opposite of preparing our kids or thinking kids, allowing our kids to think that they're college ready because they're taking advanced placement course at high school. That advanced placement course is driven by a standardized test. We know that standardized test is not the best measure to determine whether children are truly ready for college or not. I'm an example of that. If you use my test scores, I probably wouldn't have gone to an elite university, and I would have not have ended up at Harvard with a presidential scholarship to get a full ride for a doctorate, which I now have. So back to the point, which is if kids do the work and they see that they can do it, they're much more likely to think they can go to college. The AP experience, again, is driven by a process of standardized tests. So you can work hard, you can study, you can go to after-school tutoring, you can study over the weekend, you can be in study groups, do everything that you should be doing during a school year, yet fail a standardized test at the end of the year, and then you have no credit. And then it's the opposite effect on a child who then says, I worked hard, I did everything I was supposed to, I didn't pass the AP class, maybe I'm not ready for college, or maybe I thought I was going to be a doctor or a lawyer, and maybe I have to reduce my standards because I didn't do as well on the AP test. Like, on the other hand, college dual enrollment, you're doing the work, you see it. The other thing that I saw that was transformative, more in Miami, was the opportunity for kids, especially of lower socioeconomic background, that tend to be isolated, is having a class on the college campus. There is something transformative about being on a college campus, working with an actual professor, seeing other college students, and just being on a college campus alone. That expands their horizons, it builds their self-esteem, and if they're successful, they have no doubt whether they can do it. Now it's a process of the high school and the district working together with the university to find the pathways to get there through financial aid, through filling out the paperwork, FAFSA, etc. So I would say I've seen it. And I do believe that dual enrollment is the better opportunity. In the context of Florida, what we're struggling with is what was already mentioned, is that based on current statute, it's actually becoming cost prohibitive to have students take the college class on the college campus. And we're moving more towards the high school model. Not a bad thing entirely, but I do believe that it's more beneficial for the child to go to the college campus. Couple points to take away, outside from thinking about the state level and policy and how you incentivize districts and schools to offer more dual enrollment classes. I would think about a couple of things. One, how do you have more high school teachers become accredited or credentialed to teach college level courses? What incentives are you using at the district level to motivate those teachers to go the extra way to get the master's degree to be able to teach the college, at the college course? Other opportunity is how do you get more high school teachers working with college professors on the content to ensure rigor, to ensure calibration between what's expected at the college level and what's expected at the high school level regarding dual enrollment. The other thing is how do we create more early college programs at the high school level so kids can automatically start taking classes starting in 11th grade. We're doing this in Duval County right now for early college, where they end their high school experience with an associate's. So they go right into the college experience with college credit and an actual degree. Other opportunity is how do we better align our industry certification with dual enrollment. The one-size-fits-all college-going curriculum does not work for all kids. And I do think we need to think differently about the high school experience and not be afraid to talk about career technical education as long as it's leading to jobs that are high pay and are relevant in the market in the local industry. But how do we match industry certification with dual enrollment so that kids, instead of having to go to spend after 12th grade in associates type of a program, how can we offer them that in 11th and 12th grade? We are one of the only industrialized countries that don't start thinking about post-secondary until after 12th grade. Most industrialized countries are already thinking about what needs to happen at the high school level. And so what we're doing at the college level, especially in more of our community colleges, what other countries are doing during the high school experience. So why are we waiting? And that's when we know why we wonder why kids are falling asleep in class or not coming to class, because we're not making it relevant to their lives. And I think dual enrollment is an excellent way to do that. Hopefully some of these comments are relevant to you, and I look forward to any questions or the further dialogue. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Is this working? Can you hear me on the mic? It doesn't seem to be working now. Okay, Nikolai, what'd you do? I didn't do anything. Okay, I will just try to use my best teacher voice and talk loudly.
You could use this. Might be faster.
I don't want to whistle. Hello? Okay. All right, we'll do that. I'll try not to make it whistle. I'm Judy Belski, and right now I am Provost and Vice President at Florida State College at Jacksonville. But I've had the pleasure over the past several years of working coincidentally with both of the gentlemen here at the table when I was with the Department of Education in Florida. I've only been here in Jacksonville for not quite 2 years, but it's nice to be back working at a college again because actually before I was with the Department of Education, I was at another Florida college, and before that, I was working with one of our public school systems here in the state of Florida. So for the past umpty years, I started teaching in Florida in 1971, actually. My entire career has been in education in Florida. Interestingly, just about 1 year ago, I was moving from one house to another here in Jacksonville, and as we all do when we move, we start rummaging through things and seeing what we can throw out that we don't have to move. And we always have too much clutter. And as I was doing this, I'm going through old VHS tapes. And we all have some of those, right? Saying, what do I get rid of? And I came across one, and it was labeled on the end, Dual Enrollment 1988. I'm going, 1988, what's that about? So I still did actually have a VCR in the house, went and popped it in, and lo and behold, there I was being interviewed by a local TV station on dual enrollment in 1988. I looked a little bit different. Just a little bit different. But let me tell you, the issues, many of them, of course, were still the same. There was still the interest in helping students and accelerating their progress and giving them opportunities. However, some things are a little bit different now, and these are some of the things that Dr. Vitti just alluded to. The focus on career technical education and preparing for a job was not something really we were focused on in the 1980s when we were talking about dual enrollment. We were really focusing on the highest academic achieving students, looking at preparing them for university parallel programs, giving them that opportunity to move forward in that way, and not really focusing on preparing students for jobs per se. And that was a big difference in this interview that I looked at. Fast forward, 2004, and I'm working with the Department of Education, and I'm sitting in a meeting with the then Commissioner of Education, several commissioners ago, if you know anything about the history of Florida Education Commissioners, and we were talking about dual enrollment and advanced placement and school grades and all these things, and it was still very much at the time when a lot of the debate was going on about, you know, what's the best type of acceleration mechanism for students? Is it really AP? You know, is it IB? Dual enrollment, what about dual enrollment? Okay, everybody was really always, you know, dual enrollment just doesn't have the rigor that AP does, and, you know, shouldn't be considered as good for students as AP. And at that time, the commissioner looked over at me because I was the one person at the table representing the college system. Everybody else was K-12 educator around the table. Probably somebody, I don't know if Matt was there or his predecessor was at the table. And the commissioner looked at me and says, okay, he said, Bilsky, your job for the next year is to do something which can prove to me or show me that dual enrollment should be considered just as good or just as rigorous as AP. How are you going to convince me? He said, because I go out and I talk to superintendents and they're telling me it's not. So what are you going to do? I went, okay, good. So one of the first things I did was I decided to do a Google search, okay, and see what's going on in other states. And that's when I first came across actually the NACEP website and looked at that and went, aha, I've hit gold here. I found something. And used that as well as some of the research I did with other states and other research that was out there, some of it by Columbia Teachers College, to really put together an idea, put something down on paper that really spoke to what is it about dual enrollment that makes it special, that makes it good for students, that really gives it strong academic credibility and integrity. What can I put together? And it really all came down to standards and putting them down on paper so that everybody could see them, everybody could have a chance to vet them throughout our system in the state, and really understand that those dual enrollment courses, that the colleges that offered them were saying that these courses we are guaranteeing to have the same rigor and prepare students the same way as any student who comes onto our college campus as a more traditional type student. And that was what NACEP standards and the NACEP research I did really helped me to do, to look at standards in terms of faculty credentials, for example. What are we looking at for faculty credentials? What are we looking at? And make a case for those and talk about them not as this is what we expect just of high school teachers who are teaching dual enrollment on their campuses, but our instructors at the college, same thing for instructors at the high school, any place, anytime, same credentials, same rigor. Same thing for the course standards, the course number, the course content, the syllabi, the evaluation, the observations, the assessments, the data collection, all of these were things that really needed to be put down on paper. They weren't there. They weren't there. So, and of course, AP had their test at the end, and they had test scores. They could show that this is common. So one of my goals became to make sure we had a common standard in the state of Florida for looking at, you know, or a way that all colleges could assess. So we wrote the Statement of Standards, I think in the year 2005, 2006, took it to what in Florida is known as our Council of Presidents. We have 28 community and state colleges in Florida. Took it to that body and also to our Council for Instructional Affairs and Student Affairs in the state, again, all 28 colleges, and asked them to buy into this, to read it, buy into it, and see if they could support it. And to a person, every one of our 28 presidents in the state of Florida agreed to adhere by these standards. So when dual enrollment was being offered within their district, within their county, wherever it was in the state, they would say that, yes, we are going to adhere to these same types of standards. And I think that went a long way toward helping with the credibility of dual enrollment because, as mentioned earlier in the introduction, went on later to be codified in state law in Florida with some tweaks to what those original standards were, but I really feel good that they were the basis for what went into statute. But again, it comes back to the information I was able to glean from this body as well as from other states that helped us to get where we are today and actually help dual enrollment become one of those mechanisms that it became part of the state, the school grading system in Florida. And it couldn't have been done without the cooperation and the collaboration, obviously, of all the colleges in the state, as well as the good relationships that were forged with the school districts, and some understanding about what's right and what's best for students, and making opportunities for students available, but at the same time, not dumbing down anything. We want to make sure that any student who has this opportunity is able to take full advantage of that opportunity and to come out with the kind of learning experience that they would have had they already graduated from high school and were they taking those courses on a college campus. As we turn now and look to expanding or changing things for where we are right now, we are looking, as Dr. Vitti mentioned, to more of a focus on offering career technical opportunities for students in dual enrollment, preparing them for the workforce. Again, looking at programs particularly that have licensure or certification to help assess the learning outcomes, so we know that those students are really getting what they need and what we say that they are getting. This will certainly be a big push. Right now in this county, our college sponsors what we call early college high schools. We have 4 of them right now. Students take their classes at the high school at the college campus, but now we are looking at some dual enrollment academies, perhaps. Just starting some conversations with our school districts about taking dual enrollment academies and working collaboratively with our school districts to actually have like a college within a high school. Perhaps a separate part where we would have college rules, college curriculum, everything, but within the high schools, and hopefully using some of the revenue that Dr. Vitti mentioned, okay, that now by statute is required for the school districts to pay to the colleges for dual enrollment, being able to return those dollars back to the school districts into the actual school buildings to be able to put personnel on campus and offer those courses right there on the high school campus, be a win-win situation for the students, for the colleges, as well as for the school districts. So things are changing. It's not 1988 anymore, although we still have that basic interest in helping our students and doing what's best for them. But it's a pleasure after all these years to still be involved in this and be talking about it and have the great partners that I do. Thank you.
We have a limited amount of time, but would like to take a few questions. If anyone has a question, please. And if not, I'd like to thank the panel. We appreciate it very much that you were here. Thank you.